Creating is hard as hell, but community can make all the difference. Join We Create Daily, our community of storytellers of all kinds who, like you, are looking to advance their craft, careers, and creativity. Join our membership community today at thecreatedaily.com. That's thecreatedaily.com. And make your creative journey a little easier alongside like-minded storytellers just like you. I love sort of the cadence of being on set again, because I think there is something important, especially to kind of keep going in this business, to see work that you worked on become made or get made, the process of making and seeing that firsthand. Also, I think it helps you when you're in the writer's room to understand what certain things, certain shots take. When you say exterior night, we're talking exterior night. Do you want to be outside? And do you want 200 crew members outside? Do they need to be outside at night when it's cold? These are the things that you can start thinking about practically. It just helps you to think more professorial about your script. We did it.
Woo, woo.
Woo, woo. We are here with a whole podcast. A whole podcast. Not half a podcast, a whole podcast.
That's right, 100.
Welcome to the Creative Cut Up Podcast, a lively and honest space for storytellers that sits at the intersection of craft, business, and independence. I'm Felicia Pride, a writer, director, producer, head honey and honey child, and head storyteller of the Create Daily, a platform I founded in 2012 to help storytellers, especially those of us who are historically excluded, thrive creatively and professionally. And I'm here with my co-host because we got some cutting up to do.
We sure do. I'm Dria Rowland, the creative executive at Honey Child and a writer and producer.
Yes, she is.
And I'm Georgette Pierre, a voice actor and producer. You can hear it, right?
Oh, we hear that voice,
right.
honey.
Oh,
we
yeah.
hear the voice.
Oh, yeah.
So join us weekly where we talk shop and smack and share the good, the bad, and the ugly. And from 3 different perspectives, which I love, providing tangible tips to support your creative practice, your career, and your artist self. Because we all know that being an artist is hard as hell.
Oof. Say that.
But the Creative Cut Up is here to help. Shall we begin, ladies?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to another installment of the Creative Cut Up Podcast.
Hi.
It's just Georgette and I because Dria is living her best life.
Yes,
and we love that for her.
in Europe.
Around the world.
Yes.
We love that for her.
Absolutely.
So what are we talking about today, Georgette?
We are talking about a day in the life of being on set. And I know we are on set from different perspectives. I work in the short form space. I've also touched unscripted. And then I know you are currently in the midst of a scripted series shooting season 3 of Bel-Air, but just your experience of being on set from a narrative standpoint. And there's a lot of people that are interested in working in production, and I don't know if they fully understand what happens behind the camera. So I thought this would be a great episode to kind of give people some insight onto like what production life looks like outside of just being a creative or a writer on a show. So
I love that. I love that. Where should we begin? There's so much to talk about.
Where do we begin? Well, what was your experience, your first time being on set? Was it anything that you had thought it was going to be when you first stepped onto the scene?
I'll talk about Queen Sugar. Was fucking fantastic. It was so much fun. The thing that Queen Sugar and Ava was managed to do was create like this sisterhood because, you know, all the directors were women. And so what would happen too is that you'd have 3 directors there at any given time because it usually would be shadowing happening. So you'd have the director of the next episode shadowing the director of the current episode and that sort of thing. So my first experience, first of all, I flew first class for the first time in my life because they flew the writers down that we shot in Louisiana.
Ooh.
So the writers, as part of our MBA, are flown business class. So I went down first class, which was fantastic. And I remember they had parking space for me on one of their stages. And My work wife was already down there because I overlapped with prep. So prep happened in Louisiana. So you'd go down for prep and for production. And for those that don't know, prep is when you have a lot of meetings. Prep is when you're figuring out the episode. You usually start with what they call a concept meeting, which is going through the script. It's the initial meeting, just going through the script and highlighting things that are of interest that should be maybe concerns, maybe questions like, okay, I see we're going to have a rainstorm in this scene, or I see that, this is a big party. Want to talk about that a little bit. So you have a concept meeting. You have props meetings where you look at all the props that should be happening in an episode. You have hair and makeup. You have a production meeting, which is a huge meeting towards the end of prep that goes through the script again. You have a tone meeting, which is probably the most important meeting when you think about the writer-director relationship, because that's when the showrunner goes through every scene and discusses the tone of the scene, what they were thinking, the things that are not on the page, the things that are in their head. The director gets to ask questions. The writer of the episode sits in. So for me, during tone, I'm also taking notes, and that's what I use on set to make sure I get what my showrunner was envisioning on set. So you have all these meetings during prep, and then you may have a table read. Some shows do table reads, some don't, but that would happen during prep. And then you go into production. And Cree Summer was in my episode, and we were all staying at the same hotel, and we just clicked during lunch one day and have been fast friends. So I just made a lot of friends, and we did on the weekends. We're in New Orleans. It was like Jazz Fest. I made friends with wonderful people in hair and makeup that I'm still friends with to this day. It just felt like a big family, which set could feel like because you're spending so much time with these people. We're spending sometimes 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, hopefully 10 hours a day with people in close proximity day after day after day. So you can have an affinity for each other, can also hate each other, whatever the case is. But in that situation, it was just so much love and so much family and fun. And, you hang out afterwards, you hang out on the weekends. So it was a really great experience. From a writer perspective, I didn't know what I was doing. You know what I mean? In terms of what I'm supposed to do. Luckily, my showrunner really gave us some lessons. And then my work wife at the time was also there to walk me through. She was like a mentor for me because she was more senior of what I should be looking for, which we could talk about in a minute. But that was my first experience, was fantastic.
It's interesting because as I hear you speak about you all, the first class and things of that nature, the side of production that my entry point is the team that would support you getting down to New Orleans and being on the flights. So they call that production management, right? So production management is the financial nucleus of any production that takes place. A commercial, it doesn't matter what form of content it is. And so my entry point was I just wanted to work at this network so bad. I just wanted to get into TV because I was in radio. And so I started off as an office PA, and it was just interesting to learn all the moving pieces. And so before I got to the office PA, my first set was VH1 Divas, major tentpole for VH1. They were on, like I don't think they still do it anymore, but they were honoring women in that space. And I remember that I didn't get to be, and again, so with certain positions, you don't always get to be on the scene to see everything happening in real time. I was office PA, so I had to watch over the production office while everybody was on set. So we're prepping. I know. We're prepping in the office, but the night of the shoot, everybody else had to go over there. And so I had a production coordinator. He was cool. And so he was like, if you want to come over, you can. And so he had someone switch with me. But nice. I was just so excited just to be an office PA. I didn't care that I was staying in there, but it was cool that he wanted me to come in and see these things. And so my first experience was that, and then it's just continued to grow after that.
But that's the thing that you recognize about production. Like every job is so important to get this big. I'm always awed when I show up to set and there's like 100 trucks already there, costumes set up, like all the details and communication and organization that needs to happen to get us just on the day is all. I will never not be in awe of that. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. And you're like, and we didn't forget nothing. You know what I mean? Like, it's quite amazing to see.
Yeah.
This most recent experience that I've had Luckily, I've been able to produce all of my episodes of television, except one because of COVID. But the trend now is that a lot of writers aren't getting to go to set. That was something that we were fighting for during the strike because a lot of writers aren't learning to become producers, because that's really where you're learning to become producers. While I'm on set, I have on my producing the episode hat, right? It's funny because I got a shadowing opportunity that I'm really excited about, because I've never shadowed. I've been able to watch amazing directors, Debbie Allen, being able to watch Cheryl Dunye, but I'm not watching them as a director. I'm watching them as a writer or producer. So to be able to have an opportunity to do that is fantastic. But when I'm on set, I got to produce an episode. And a lot of times what we're looking for, one, is to make sure that the scene makes sense, right? From a set deck perspective. So that's set decoration, costume, hair, makeup, and it makes sense for when it's happening, because often you're shooting out of order, right? Also, does it make sense? Do these elements make sense? Then I'm looking for performance, right? Well, I would say then blocking. So this is where the director, is managing the blocking. And the writer-director relationship on set, I've always had really great writer-director relationships on set. I've actually really enjoyed that collaboration. But it is one where you have to, as a writer-producer, give the director rein. You have to give them space. You have to allow them to figure out some scenes, but also get what you need to get for your showrunner. You know what your showrunner wants. If it ain't happening, you got to get it, while also making sure that you're giving the director space and letting the director direct. So that's something that's really, really important. But as part of that, one of the big things for us as writers is we're looking at performance. Is this performance the performance that we wanted? We're also looking for dialogue. I am not as a stickler for things having to be said exactly what they are, unless they need to be said exactly as they are. Especially on a medical show like Grey's Anatomy, you have to say it like this, because if not, this means the patient's dead. Like that type of dialogue was really, really important. But what I'm really thinking about is like performance, and the things that need to be said may impact episode 8. And directors who are guest directors don't know that. So I have to be on top of that, right? I need to know this is episode 4, but he has to say it like this because that's setting up episode 8. And I know what's happening in episode 8. So those are a lot of the things that we're looking for while we're on set as writer producers.
Yeah, it's interesting. My goal is to eventually produce on the narrative side of things. And so from my side of producing, we're short form a lot of times, or unscripted. I had worked on Netflix's My Next Guest Needs No Introduction with David Letterman. It's an interview style show. You're setting up what needs to be set up, and you're out maybe 1 to 2 days later. And so a lot of times we're the first ones there, last ones to leave. So it was kind of back to your comment about, did we forget anything? And our goal is to, if we did, for no one else to know. You have to hide that if you did forget something, it's being worked on in the background.
So you want to be, what do you want to be, production supervisor? You want to be line producer?
No, it was the non-writing EP. And I know we had talked about that. And what does that look like to be a
Girl, they don't be on set.
Oh, really?
Some of them do.
Okay.
Especially for first season shows, but typically no.
Yeah.
They're not on set.
Yeah.
They're not on set.
I would love to get more of that experience. And I don't know what that exact title is. Like the line producer, I know that's not it for me, but I just don't know what that producer line is on the narrative front. But we have to set everything up. So we are getting the equipment. What does the director want? What type of cameras does he want? Is it getting there on time? We're there with the directors for the tech scout. So we got to make sure by the time everyone that's supposed to be there walks in, whether it's the writers for that commercial, they need to see everything the way that they envisioned it in their minds creatively. And if something is missing, they are coming to our team and say, hey, Georgette, we didn't get this. Can you get this? Production has to resolve everything from the crew missing equipment to something happening at the location, all the way down to even food. What's happening with talent? Does everyone have everything that they need? And so with the Letterman show, what was interesting is a lot of times people don't know all the things that you have to do to make sure things happen. And so one episode, I did all the New York episodes, Ryan Reynolds, Cardi B, and Kevin Durant. And so with Cardi B episode, the director was like, well, I want Dave and Cardi walking from this location to go get a chopped cheese. Well, we were in the hood. So we had to kind of reimagine what does this look like? But the running joke that I used to tell people around the time before that episode came out was New York bodegas in certain places in New York, they do hood business. So they're not interested in you coming with contracts and agreements and things of that nature. They want to know, like, what am I signing? Why do I have to sign it? How are you paying me? And when are you paying me? And so we had an incident where we had a location manager, communication broke down. They didn't want to talk to him anymore. And so I had to step in. It's almost like they wanted a softer, tone. So then they only started communicating with me. And I literally had to loc out with the location manager to 1:00 in the morning to get the location agreement signed. And I had to be on set 4 hours later.
Ooh.
So this is what things that people don't think about when they're like, oh, yeah, I want to work in a production. Well, which side of production do you want to work on? Because this is what it
Acting on your ideas is a form of self-love. And when I decided to write the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal, it was with you in mind. Storytellers with stories inside of you that you need to get out into the world. But life, fear, uncertainty has a way of leaving us stuck. But no more. It's time to reclaim our creative practice and get unstuck. The Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal can help you get back on creative track. 30 days of dynamic prompts, exercises to stimulate creativity, alongside motivational quotes, journal pages, and more. If you're ready to create again, get your copy of the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal today at creativecomeback.com. That's creativecomeback.com. Because it's never too late to become the artist you always wanted to be. So do you want to be on set all the time?
I do. I actually enjoy.
I love that because, honey, I realize I am not built for set for long, extended periods of time because I'm built for sitting in a room for 8 hours.
Yeah.
And I think that people on set couldn't sit in a room for 8 hours. There's an endurance to set.
Oh, gosh.
That I don't have.
Yeah.
That I would have to build up if I were going to be on set all the time. But I like the amount of time that I'm on set.
No, I'm with you.
I know that is going to be done in under 9 days because I come home exhausted and just my body just doesn't have that same endurance.
Yeah. Where I struggle and the happy medium is when I'm on set, just a different mindset turns on, right? I don't really eat the top of the morning. I want everyone else to eat. I'm focused, right? And I'm focused on an empty stomach. But to your point, being the last one to leave is taxing. So sometimes I'm just like, I'm over this. And so what's the happy medium? What would this look like working in production for a show that's getting taped for 3 months? It just looks different, right? And I haven't had that experience yet because I could sure enough change my mind after this episode and be like, ooh, Felicia, I'm good. Let me go sit in somebody's room. I'm here if y'all need me. I'll take notes.
I mean, as a non-writing EP, you can go to set when you want. But the thing about non-writing EPs, you're still developing other shows and you're still producing this one, right? Because ideally, this would be one show you have on the air.
Yep.
Right. But then you're trying to sell other shows. So you're in development meetings. You're also doing notes on cuts. You're doing notes on scripts. So as a non-writing EP, there's not a lot of time to be on set.
Okay. But see, that I can ease into that. Like I said, I think we should definitely do an episode.
I could ease into it, honey.
I would love to do an episode on that. I'm curious on what it looks like to be a great non-writing EP, a supportive non-writing EP, you know.
I have many thoughts.
Okay.
One thing I will say that I think, you have such a value add is I think non-writing EPs that understand budgets, I think could be very valuable because you can help to be a liaison or an additional set of eyes between the showrunner and the line producer. I think the showrunner and line producers, of course, should have their own relationship. But if you're a non-writing EP who can come with solutions that are story-driven, could be very valuable to, productions and that sort of thing. So I think you having the experience of what things cost, what things take from a budgetary standpoint, I think is a huge value add.
That makes sense. I would love to dive in deeper on another episode, but that's helpful to know. Again, short form, it's just a lot different because you're in and out on the same day. A lot of times the things that we're working on and the stuff that I'm working on is for a network. So at Paramount, I'm on the branded content team, but before when I worked at VH1 and Nickelodeon, we were specifically making commercials or promos or PR campaigns specifically for the shows that we were promoting. So The Breaks, when that was on, that was our really popular scripted series that did well.
Yes, my shout out to Fonte, who did a lot of the music.
Oh, did he? Yeah. I mean, shout out to the actors. They were great to work with. Antoine Harris, Wood Harris, Mac Wild, Afton, all of them. And so my team, we created the promos for all of that. And sometimes that required us to be in Brooklyn in the middle of the night to get these shots so it could feel authentic to Brooklyn in the 80s, right? So you're always in service to whatever the creative needs, but you also have to do it within budgetary means because you can't blow out this budget simply because somebody wants something to look a certain way. Well, the network didn't give you all that much money to do it. And we have to figure out how to make it work. And we had Director X as our director for that promo. So it's been some cool things I've worked on, but to your point, it's exhausting. It's really taxing, but you got to really want to do it or just be interested in the TV production space to really navigate this world.
I mean, I love sort of the cadence of being on set again, because I think there is something important, especially to kind of keep going in this business, to see work that you worked on become made or get made, the process of making and seeing that firsthand. Also, I think it helps you when you're in the writer's room to understand what certain things, certain shots take. When you say exterior night, we're talking exterior night. Do you want to be outside? And do you want 200 crew members outside? Do they need to be outside at night when it's cold? These are the things that you can start thinking about practically. It just helps you to think more producerial about your script. And I just think also like this season of Bel-Air, I've just been able to see some really, really cool stuff. Y'all don't have to tune in, no spoilers, but I've been able to witness the making of some really cool shots that I've never seen before. So that is when the director in me, but also just the writer in me is like, oh man, look at how they're making this happen. It's been really, really amazing. That movie magic feeling I have felt being on set for sure in this latest job.
Yeah, I think that's what it is for me. And as much as the business can sometimes kick rocks, it's when you get to be part of something, you're like, damn, I worked on that. And I'm sure that's probably been an exhilarating feeling because you're touching different things. You're also a director. You get to witness these things on a show that's doing really well. And I would assume it has also good budget to really do the things that they want to do from a storytelling aspect, which I think is also important too. So,
I mean, as a writer, you have to learn to let things go though and be creative.
Yeah.
You know, we have big ambitions at the beginning of a season, and then that party that you were talking about is now 5 people in a garage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So your babies and your dreams get dashed, but that's part of the process. The wonderful thing is what's getting made. And that's the one thing that I had to recognize and didn't realize. I think my first episode was, you have to be very clear because, you could write in, Jane is driving a blue car and Props is going to be out there looking for a blue car. And you just picked a color out your ass because you were like, I like blue. And it don't have to be blue. So being really clear in your script about the fact that this is going to get made and that people are going to take this literally really was eye-opening to me. I'm like, oh, like they're really reading every line and taking it literally. So that also has helped me write differently and more specific and more intentional.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm working on a shoot now and we had an art department meeting and they're literally like, okay, do you want to get a space that we rent that looks like this or do you want us to build something? And if we do build it in a smaller stage, then what does this look like? Do they have more money for their art department budget? Because we decided not to rent out a loft space that looks like whatever the thing is. And so these are things that people don't think about, but they have to take it literally, right? Because they're just like, well, this says this and the script says this. And it's, so.
They have to. That's the blueprint. So we have to make sure that the blueprint is specific and that we highlight what's actually really important. It's like, no, we really want the mood of a party, but it doesn't necessarily have to be this, so being clear on what is most important.
This is good. I feel like we touched at least on some main points. Yeah.
I think so, but I hope that all writers get to go to set and get to sharpen their producerial skills and get to have healthy relationships and collaborations with directors and get to produce episodes of television. There's no experience like it. I think it helps to just keep me going to be able to be there after. And then after my 9 days, I'm like, okay, back to the room, because I love the writer's room. But being on set can be quite magical. And of course, we're not diving into the toxic aspects of set, but when it's healthy, it can be quite magical. And I think that is also important to, get to know crew, because they are your collaborators, your fellow storytellers, really understanding how they think about story and bringing them into that process. And so I think it's quite magical.
Not for nothing. Crew sometimes just kind of lifts you up too on some just general chill shit, or everyone's tired, so y'all are all rooting for the same thing to get to the end goal of whatever happened in that shoot day. So
and it's so interesting because I literally mentioned that to my coworker. I was like, every day we leave set feels like a triumph. It's like a hand clap. We did it, and we're gonna be back tomorrow. Like I've never had a job where you hand clap at the end of the day with such victory. Then
real.
Set does it every day. Woo! That's it. We did it. We made it. But you see why?
Yeah,
because every day is a triumph we pulled this off.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yes.
Fantastic. Well, shall we get into our segment, How We Create?
We shall.
This is where we share all forms of inspiration that may have stopped us in our tracks, made us laugh, had us shouting, or even reminded us to rest.
I'm going with music, a doubleheader. I had recently discovered this group called The Sacred Souls. Have you heard of them?
No.
Oh, man. They are literally taking it back to it feels like 60s, 70s soul music. It's giving this contemporary feel or spin on soul music. It's really dope. The Sacred Souls. And then BJ the Chicago Kid.
I like BJ a lot.
I do too. He has a latest album out, and Long Time is one of my jams right now. So that's what I've been bopping to.
Fantastic. Well, I want to shout out my sis, Roche Jeffrey. We had her on the podcast a few episodes ago. Check out the podcast episode of Being a Comedy Writer. Episode 6, she and I, we have this ritual of going hiking every week, every Sunday. And I'm just realizing, first of all, that's the longest thing I've ever committed to. I feel like, and I've missed hardly any, few Sundays, but missed hardly any in the grand scheme, because I think we've been doing this for 6 years now. But I recognize the importance just of having someone who I have a shorthand with, because we go on these hikes and we talk shit about the business, we support each other, but to have that shorthand, to have a similar perspective about things, to still be in this game, doing our thing, but also finding our own way in this game, finding our own lanes, is just inspiring to me. And I'm so grateful for that friendship and that sisterhood. So shout out to Roche Jeffrey, who is an incredibly talented TV writer, incredibly funny stand-up comedian, writer, director, just all around multi-hyphenate. Shout out to Roche.
I want to echo. She's great also at teaching classes. She's, she did our crafting comedy writing for TV, and I just how engaged she was. I'm taking notes while running the presentation. She knows how to teach to understand for people that just may have never done this before. And so I definitely want to echo. Roche's just phenomenal.
Yeah, that's my sis. Well, thank y'all for tuning into another installment of the Creative Cut Up podcast. We just keep going and going and going. And we are so excited to do it again next week.
Absolutely.
See you then. Thanks for listening to the Creative Cut Up podcast, a lively and honest space for storytellers that sits at the intersection of craft, business, and independence. Listen to us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you dig it, subscribe, rate, review, and please tell a friend. If you need help getting back into your creative practice, check out the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal. You can also join our newsletter and our We Create Daily community, both of which provide even more resources and opportunities to thrive creatively at thecreatedaily.com. And lastly, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn at The Create Daily. Ever wonder how how a novel went from the page to the screen? How an entire film derived from a great magazine article? Or how you get the life rights to tell the story of that fascinating person you met or historical figure you're obsessed with? Learn the process in our new on-demand course called Based On: How to Adapt Books, Articles, and Real-Life Stories for Film and TV. Led by myself, Felicia Pride, and Dria Rowland, Honeychild's creative executive and co-host of the Creative Cut Up podcast, you'll learn the process of optioning and developing IP for adaptation, the nuances of 3 different types of adaptations: books, articles, life rights, all the development jargon, what Honeychild looks for and how we source, search, and track IP, plus the answers to all of your burning questions. We'll break down the ins and outs of adapting IP and more. You'll get immediate access to our on-demand course for 6 months upon registration. So sign up today at thecreatedaily.com.